Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of the Benchwarmer Sports podcast. I'm Raffi, joined by Davian. Davian, we're down to the Final Four. And oh my gosh, thinking of Final Four gets me excited for college basketball. But anyways, we're down to the Final Four for the NFL season. March Madness, really close. We'll start ramping up for that shortly. But anyways, let's focus on football. Down to the Final Four. Conference Championship weekend is on Sunday, so that's going to be so much fun. I can't wait for it. So as naturally, we have to talk about the divisional games, talk about and preview these conference championship games. And also, there's been a lot of stuff going on with head coaches being fired, new head coaches being hired. We have GMs being fired left and right. Trent Baalke got fired literally today. And then all of a sudden, like the Raiders fired their GM also like 2 weeks after most people fired their head coaches and GMs. It's really weird how all these timelines are working out for a lot of these teams. But we're here to break it all down. But before we do any of that, as is customary on this podcast, as we do every single week that we've been doing for almost the past 2 years, which is insane. David, how are you doing? We're getting closer and closer to Super Bowl. It's almost Super Bowl Sunday, which is just insane to think about.
Yeah, I'm doing great. I mean, honestly, college basketball is ramping up. The Rangers are back doing well. I mean, there's what is there not to be, excited about? The Patriots have hired Mike Vrabel, which is very exciting. Josh McDaniels is coming back, which I personally like. We'll kind of discuss that later on. But yeah, I mean, I'm overall excited. I mean, this is going to be a great conference championship weekend. I mean, you got Commanders, Eagles. These two teams have been rivals since the dawn of the NFL, and we got Bills, Chiefs. And I think these are going to be both absolutely incredible games. The Commanders are the underdog, which is very weird to say because the Eagles are usually that team that comes in with the underdog mentality. We all remember their historic run with Nick Foles. Uh, and as they beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl. Not something I like to talk about, but still, and with the Bills Chiefs game, I mean, two absolute this is the future of the NFL. And actually, I don't even know if you could say it's the future. It is the now of the NFL. You have these two superstars in Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes going head to head, a rematch of the conference championship. Was there not to be excited about, Rafi? But as analysts and as right as we always are, we'll be making our predictions. So, Rafi, Commanders, Eagles, who is your winner?
I mean, we're just gonna clump the two together because a couple weeks ago, for not foreshadowing, but a couple weeks ago, I made the crazy prediction that the Eagles and Bills would be facing off in the Super Bowl. And Davian, I've come here once again to tell you it's going to be Bills and Eagles in the Super Bowl. The Bills were great this past week. We'll get into game by game after we give our predictions, obviously, for who we think is going to go to the Super Bowl. But the Bills, they looked great last week. Josh Allen didn't completely light up the scoreboard, but the defense for Buffalo was absolutely fantastic. They made a bunch of key stops. Now, part of that, yes, was the Ravens shooting themselves in the foot pretty consistently, but also it was the Bills defense who were creating a lot of pressure, really tightening up on defense, just playing lockdown, especially with their DBs. So I think the Bills are going to be able to handle business versus the Chiefs. And then the question that you originally asked me, who's going to win commies, Eagles? I have the Eagles. The Commanders' offense was unbelievable this past weekend versus the Lions. It felt like every single time the Commanders got the ball, they scored, and they were going to score at least 3 points on every single drive. And I'm pretty sure if you look through the drives of that game, I don't think the Commanders punted once in that game. They were just that good offensively. So it's going to be a really high-scoring game in my opinion. But I just think the Eagles, their defense is much better than the Lions are now, and I know they're both comparable, but the Lions defense has really been decimated due to injuries. This Eagles defense is better. I think they're going to get a lot of pressure on Jay and Daniels, and I think the Eagles are going to beat the Commanders. How about your predictions?
Yeah, man, I have to agree with you, but I really want to stress more the point about why the Bills are going to beat the Chiefs. Because look, this Chiefs team has been getting bailed out by the refs, which is what I think we partially saw last week. This Chiefs team is getting lucky, and I think their luck has run out. Now, I disagree with this whole notion of, oh, well, the Chiefs were, this had such a great record, but they're actually like 5 inches away from losing this game, 10 inches away from losing this game. Like, I hate that logic. That's not, this is a game. game by game, I understand they're winning by very small margins, by small turn of events, but they're also losing games the same way. Like the playing in this what if scenario of like, oh well, if this happened differently, but it didn't. Okay, and I hate that we have analysts out here, professional sports analysts, not people like you and I, Raffi, who do this as a side hobby, who are just simply saying the Chiefs are just a team made out of luck. No, I do think that the Chiefs deserve to be in the conference championship. I thought that they wouldn't be, of course, but they are. And so, but either way, I think that the Bills team has shown they can contain a Ravens offense. They can play at a top tier level. They can beat the Chiefs in the conference championship, even as they're going into Arrowhead. Now, with the Eagles Commanders, look, Jaden Daniels is the future of the NFL. He is absolutely lights out, been absolutely an amazing quarterback. But this Eagles team is just a well rounded machine. They beat the Rams. They beat the Packers. They've been absolutely just playing phenomenal football, especially at the second half of the season. I just see them winning this game. I don't see how they lose. The only way I see them how they lose is if the Commanders' offense goes off and the Eagles' offense really just struggles and that they stall out a few times. There's no other way I really see the Commanders really being able to win. But I'm done ranting, Rocky. What are your thoughts? Do you think the Commanders have a chance here or no?
I mean, to be fair, the Eagles. Now, again, I will caution this by saying it was a snow game this past week between the Rams and Eagles.
Yeah.
So you look at the stat line: Jalen Hurts, 120 something yards, I believe, 150 yards. You're like, oh, that's kind of rough.
Well,
but then you also remember it's a snow game. You're not going to get a lot of passing out of either.
Yeah, you can't expect to.
And I think the big thing that was a little concerning was the Eagles' offense did stall out a couple times. Now, again, snow game, so how much of that can you take in with you? But on the other hand, too, it's like the Eagles' offense. Whenever they had the chance to make, they made the big plays. Jalen Hurts 40+ yard touchdown run. Saquon Barkley 2 touchdown runs over 60 yards. One being an 82-yard touchdown, which really put the game away for the Eagles. So I really do think that the Eagles' offense could certainly stall out, and there's also quite the possibility. As much as I've been hyping up the Eagles' defense since the playoffs have started, there's still a very, very high chance that the Commanders and Jane Daniels are just completely on a mission this year and completely torch the Eagles' secondary. It's not out of mind right now.
No, it can't be.
I can kind of imagine the Commanders being the Lions. It makes sense to me. I can understand it within the context of how that game went. And the last time the Eagles lost was to this Commanders team, and I believe it was 33-38. So it's not out of the question that this Commanders team is completely out of it. They're not meant to be here. So I do give the Commanders a decent chance. I'd say right now I'm probably more 65-35 on the Eagles winning this game. But again, if we are talking on this podcast next week doing our Super Bowl predictions and it's Commanders versus insert one of the two AFC teams, I wouldn't be completely surprised. And that might just be like me proofing everything so I don't make myself look like a complete crazy person or a complete idiot. But in my mind, I think you have to give more credit to the Commanders than what people have been giving them over the past couple of weeks, because they've certainly earned that respect.
Yeah, I completely agree. You have to put respect where it's given, and speak about respect where it's given. There's some teams that, although I think they had a lot of respect going into the playoffs, clearly just couldn't perform with the spotlight on them, and that's got to be the Ravens, right? I mean, Rafi, like we keep talking about is Lamar Jackson the problem, but you can't really say that. Like I don't see like how you could say Lamar Jackson is a problem because he's been playing so well, and he played well last week too. It's a snow game, it's tough conditions, it's hard to hold on to the ball. So I feel like we saw that in the Rams Eagles game too, like the fumbles all the time. We saw, I mean, the Lions Commanders, we just saw so many interceptions from Jared Goff, right? Am I right when I say that? Yeah. I think he threw a lot of interceptions that game. And then with the with the last game, which was the Texans Chiefs. I mean, Texans started off well, but they just couldn't really keep up. And once the Chiefs get going, it's hard to stop a team like that.
I mean, it's just the offense saw that for the Texans. That's really what happened when it
Yeah,
comes down to it.
you can't. You
And
can't.
I'll just take it from you with the Ravens talk and just say, like, yeah, we can kind of feel bad for Lamar Jackson, but at the end of the day, like, he dropped the ball. Now, okay, to be fair, Mark Andrews also dropped the ball. Sorry,
Mark and okay,
that was
okay,
an
well,
unintentional walk in. That was an
right.
unintentional punt, but that I lined that up perfectly, just unknowingly. But anyways, I will say though, Lamar Jackson, for as much as Mark Andrews messed up, Mark Andrews mess ups happened later on in the game. He obviously had the
Yeah,
fumble, which was just you need to have the ball security, especially when you're
yeah,
trying to claw your way back into the
yeah,
game. The pass on the 2 point conversion, it wasn't the best throw, but it's something that you would expect one of the, like
yeah,
a top five tight end in the NFL to catch. That
yeah,
like
yeah,
it's yes, it like it goes both ways. I always think of things as a two-way street.
yeah,
Yes, Lamar Jackson should have thrown a better ball,
yes,
and yes, Mark Andrews should have still caught that ball.
yes,
But overall, coming back to my main point, Lamar Jackson throws a amazing pass to Taylor Rapp in the second quarter, just right on the money, beautiful
yeah,
ball. And if you're wondering why are you talking, this isn't helping your point. Taylor Rapp, for those who don't know, is the safety of the Buffalo Bills. Just just completely overshoots his wide receiver and
yeah,
gets picked off. And then the next drive, they make progress on the field. Then he fumbles the ball, and the Bills take it all the way back for. I think they set themselves up, especially it was in Ravens territory, and that's all of a sudden a swing of 10 points.
yeah.
Lamar
So
Jackson did
are you
not do
basically
any
saying that Lamar
favors.
Jackson is somewhat a problem in the playoffs? Like he has a Chargers like curse, or do you think it's just like situational football? It's just like it's a winter game. You're going against a tough defense, and mistakes happen.
I just think
What
they
are your
keep
thoughts
beating
on that?
themselves. I like it's not
Yeah,
even like cursed is hard because the Chargers have like substantial stuff. Like, do you remember the year when they won? They got the bye week and they were the number one team, best offense. Or no, sorry, they didn't get the bye. Best offense, best defense, and they missed the playoffs somehow. That's cursed. The Ravens are not a cursed franchise. They won the Super Bowl. I believe it's now 13 years ago. Jeez, we're getting old. I'm getting old at least, but they just keep shooting themselves in the foot. They've done this consistently in the past couple of years where they set themselves up, and it's you can like most games, you can kind of pinpoint to a couple plays of like, okay, this is what dictated the game.
yeah,
The Mark Andrews fumble, the Lamar Jackson fumble, the Lamar Jackson pick, the Mark Andrews drop. Lamar Jackson's not doing his team any favors. If Lamar Jackson threw for 300 yards, had three touchdowns, played a clean game, and it came down to a Mark Andrews drop, okay, well, Lamar Jackson beats the allegations of, okay, like, yes, he didn't have he had a really good game. He kept his team in it, and the ball just didn't go his way. Should the Ravens get rid of Lamar Jackson?
no,
No,
like
no.
come on, he's a generational
He's a
talent.
bona fide top five, maybe even top three quarterback in the NFL. You do
Yes,
not get rid of Lamar Jackson.
no, absolutely
There's
not.
no reason to. This conversation a couple of years ago of should they trade him? Ridiculous.
Yeah,
Still ridiculous. You do not trade a 28-year-old franchise quarterback.
no,
But I do think one, you need to get more support around him because Zay Flowers was out. I don't. Zay Flowers was an enigma this year too, where he'd go off, but then the next week he'd do nothing, and it's like, was he even playing? He was just running cardio. But they do need to help Lamar Jackson more. They need to surround him with more talent. But at the end of the day, Lamar Jackson in these big games needs to do a better job of showing up and like getting rid of the like it's my fault. Again, like Joe Burrow had a fantastic year this year. We're not
yeah,
talking about Joe Burrow costed the Bengals a playoff spot. It's the Bengals defense costed the Bengals a playoff spot. It wasn't Joe Burrow. Lamar Jackson needs to get to that tier where if the Ravens do lose in the playoffs, it's not his fault. He's
yeah.
not the reason why they lost. And for the past couple of playoff games, in these big games, he's been the reason, one of the reasons why they've lost. Not the reason, not the only reason, but he's been one of the reasons. And again, for a franchise caliber quarterback, you cannot be doing that.
No, you really can't. And I think we'll see. I mean, hopefully they'll make changes. And I guess speaking of changes, Rafi, is it time to talk about the coaching carousel that's going on in the NFL?
That is a great segue. Davian, I'll hand it over to you first. What
Yeah.
surprised you so far? Either someone getting fired that you didn't think was getting fired, someone getting hired that you were like, I don't think they'd be a good head coach or GM or whatever position they're hired for. What are your thoughts right now? And like, what was
Yeah.
something that really stood out to you so far?
You know, one thing that really stood out was just like the whole Liam Cohen thing, right? Liam Cohen was like a really well, like everyone was on it, like the same way that Ben Johnson was on everyone's radar. So was Liam Cohen, maybe less so. He's the offensive coordinator, former offensive coordinator from the Bucks. The Bucks give this guy an extension, and then yesterday they did that. Today he signs a deal to become the new head coach of the Jaguars, right? And the reason why I think is because he said originally, "Oh, I'm not going to go to the Jaguars," but now because they fired their GM, now he's going over there. And this is what I think we're starting to see, Rafi. We're starting to see the comeback of head coaches only taking deals if they're able to have full control over the team, which is something that's so strange, Rafi, because you think of Bill Belichick last year, who couldn't find a job at anywhere in the NFL because they said he wanted too much power. And now we have teams giving up power left and right. We have the Jaguars doing it. We have the Patriots doing it, right, with Mike Vrabel and giving Mike Vrabel the opportunity to bring in his own staff, and Elliot Wolf, kind of serving as a GM, but Mike Vrabel really having a say in a lot of the things that happen. So it's very interesting to see how the whole coaching dynamic in the NFL seems to shift year by year. A great hire today was by the Raiders hiring Pete Carroll. I think Pete Carroll is still an NFL caliber head coach, and I think it would be great to see what he could do with this Raiders team, especially as they try to rebuild. The Texans firing their offensive coordinator Bobby Slowick, which I think was good. He did absolutely amazing with CJ Stroud and Tank Dell and the entire team, but they needed to change because this offense this year was supposed to be absolutely electric, absolutely in like one of the best offenses, and we just didn't see that, and we saw it really kind of lackluster in the playoffs, and that's why I think they need to change, and that's why I really respect it. But Ravi, what
Yeah.
are your thoughts? Anything that really stood out to you? Any hires you really liked? Any hires that you didn't like? I know you and I were talking about Josh McDaniels. I'd love to hear your take on it from an outside perspective because I can give you a perspective as a Patriots fan.
Yeah, it seems more like the Patriots retread way in my mind when I'm looking at the Josh Daniels becoming the OC for New England again, where it seems like there's this cycle and it goes around everywhere, like with this meme of the Patriots, like someone who was an assistant under Bill Belichick, either a coordinator or whatever, gets hired by a new team, like has a lot of success with the Patriots, gets hired to a new team, runs said team into the ground, gets fired by said team because they did a terrible job, and now they're back under Bill Belichick coaching the Patriots, or they're at Alabama, one of the two. And it feels like this is just one of those retread signings by the Patriots. It could work out, but Josh McDaniels the past couple of years during his becoming a head coach journey has been really, really rough, and maybe it works out. But personally, I just think the Patriots need to just dissolve themselves of this way of, okay, oh, this person got fired, oh, let's bring him back. There's other people who are just as talented that are new faces, and I think the Patriots need to kind of look into, like, Gerard Mayo was the guy that they literally like guided along to be the future head coach. It just didn't work out. And sometimes I think for a team like the Patriots, it's sometimes you get stuck in the mindset of this is how things have worked out. This is how things have gone, so we need to keep it. It's the Patriot way to keep doing things like this. And when you bring in Mike Vrabel, who's a former Patriot, formerly he was an assistant, I believe, at some point for the Patriots too. Correct me if I'm wrong. And was like oh, like, we need him to be the head coach. Oh, we need Josh McDaniels to be the OC now. We have to bring him back. I think they just need to just again dissolve themselves from this thinking and just get in some newer, fresher minds, in my opinion, at least.
One thing I'll say is that yes, there is a thing to be said about new, fresh minds, but another thing is about bringing back someone that has done a good job with this team in the past and who could bring in a system that works. And I think that's what Josh McDaniels is. He is not the best coach. He shouldn't be a head coach. We saw that from his Raiders days, right? And so I'm happy he's not the Patriots head coach right now, which, as you were saying, that was the official succession plan. It was supposed to go Bill Belichick, Josh McDaniels, and of course he left. I think bringing him back is crucial because I think Mike Vrabel is a coach that is very good, is very defensive minded, and can really help rebuild this defense. And I think we needed to bring someone on offense who can really do a lot and be a great supporting cast for Drake May. And I think that this is what Josh McDaniels brings. Um, I no, like, is this the most perfect hire? No, there's probably better hires out there. But bringing someone who has ran an offense before, who's been on this team before, who knows, the Patriots fandom and knows the expectations and has been there during our glory days, will bring in an expectation to win, not to rebuild. And that's what we need on this team. We need winners. Because last year we had, I'm going to go on a rant here, Rafi, so you're going to have to hear me out. And pardon my French when I say this, but last year we had a front office that was a bunch of pussies, respectfully speaking. We had Gerard Mayo that was letting players talk trash about the team, talk trash about the fans. He backed down to the players. We lost our culture with Gerard Mayo. He said he wanted to bring a new culture that is post Bill Belichick and, where players can talk to the press freely, who can really kind of like let loose. And that clearly does not work for this team. And so bringing in this is when you say we want to dissolve ourselves from the Belichick Kraft era, it makes sense because it is a new era. But at the same time, that was the most successful dynasty of all time. So you want to bring some things back. And that is Mike Vrabel, who is literally part of that dynasty. He knows the Patriot way. Josh McDaniels knows the Patriot way. We need to bring back the Patriot way to the Patriots, and that is what the Josh McDaniels hire does. And that's why
All right,
I, I have to say that. I know that was a
I'm
lot,
gonna
but
I'm gonna tell you a little story, and this story is about a team that, in a term similar time frame as the Patriots, also had a lot of success. They were one of the best teams in their respective league, won numerous championships, were 1 year away from being a dynasty, although many smart individuals do call them a dynasty. And that was the Chicago Blackhawks. And you might be wondering, what? The Chicago Blackhawks used to be a good team? In which I would respond with, you are way too old to be watching this podcast and not remember the Dynasty Blackhawks. You're not making me feel old right now. The Blackhawks had a general manager by the name of Stan Bowman who did a very dumb thing and deservedly got fired for covering up a whole scandal, which I will not be getting into on this podcast. You guys can read about it. I don't want to be we're not getting into that rabbit hole. But this man he was doing well. He was bringing back all these pieces, like he was putting together, making good financial decisions. But then he decided, you know what? We got swept by the Nashville Predators. We just won the President's Trophy. What can we do? Like, how can we get back to where we were? How did we lose this game to the Nashville Predators? And what did they do, Davian? Young Davian, who is recording this podcast with me. They traded Artemi Panarin, one of their best players, playing alongside Patrick Kane for Brandon Saad. Do you know why? Because Brandon Saad played the right way. He was a power forward. He was going to be great. He was great with Jonathan Toews before he got traded wrongfully. He's going to be back. You know what? Let's double. Andrew Shaw, come back, man. You were great. The Mutt, great bottom six player. We need him back. And they started to bring in these guys. Once again, Patrick Sharp they brought back for another year after he was in Dallas. And you know what happened, Davian? None of them had the same success that they did when the Blackhawks were winning the Stanley Cup. But I guess he was old, Stan Bowman kept being stuck in his ways and kept trying to bring back the band, tried to bring back people from the former Blackhawks. And you know what happened? He ran the team into the ground and finally got fired for his incompetence because he was stuck in his ways, and the Blackhawks were a mediocre team after 2017 because he was so stuck in his ways. He had to overpay for players because of loyalty reasons and just ran the team into the ground. The Patriots, I feel right now, are going down that path. Now, things could be completely different. But the big thing for Josh McDaniels, why he had so much success, you had Tom Brady, and I'm not saying Drake May can't be an amazing quarterback. He showed flashes. Sorry, you had Tom Brady. You had players like LeGarrette Blount and James White. They don't like Stevenson's all right, but I wouldn't say he's LeGarrette Blount from the Patriots dynasty. You don't have a Julian Edelman. You don't have
That's
a Rob
not what we're trying to
Gronkowski.
bring back,
You
though.
don't
We have a
have
new
the same
era, and we're going to
pieces that
bring
you
in new
did.
players like AJ Brown through the trade. Like, Raffi, we're not trying to bring back the old Patriots team. That's not the idea. The idea is to bring
Well, you
back a
can't. They're all
locker room.
retired. But the points,
Well,
like, you
yeah, no, I
can't.
understand it, but like the issue, Rafi, is like you're talking about like what coaches did of like trading players, and I agree that's what the Blackhawks did was wrong to bring in players that fit the like. I don't think the Patriots should bring in players that fit the Patriot way per se. No, that's not the idea. The idea is that you need a coaching staff that can actually coach and control the locker room, and where you're not the joke of the league because people are making fun of you, and where you have players that are going out and making and saying that the fans don't have a right to be upset. Fans have every right to be upset. It's 6 years without the playoffs. Like, yes, I understand that we're spoiled as Patriots fans, but we have every right to be upset, I think, and we have every right to ask for some return to normalcy. And the only thing we know that is normal is the Patriot way, because it's a system, it's a dynasty that worked. Am I saying bring back players that and coach them into this Patriot way, like where they're kind of like the Tom Brady and Gronk and Edelman, where they didn't talk to the media at all and then start talking? No, I think Mike Vrabel's a great coach, and he was a great coach on the Titans, and that's why we hired him. And he knows the Patriot way as well, so he can incorporate that too. But I don't think we need to bring. I disagree with this notion, honestly.
All I'm saying is it's good to have, like, it's good to remember the Patriots dynasty. Although I am not too fond of it, but that's because I have bias. It's good to have those days, but at some point you need to move on from it. I get
I
the
agree.
culture
Yeah.
thing. I get the importance, like, okay, like, we want to bring back these people and now they're like head coaches. It's the Patriot way. I just think it's not a bad thing to have some new people brought in, some new different perspectives. And I think, like, if it blows up in their face, whatever. But I just think that the Patriots just seem to be stuck in their ways. So that's just my outside perspective. We can talk about this consistently throughout the offseason because I'm sure
Yeah,
the
we could,
Patriots are
and
going
I
to make
think,
more moves.
and I would love to continue this discussion because we'll see what the Patriots decide to do as the offseason continues.
100%. And I'll just finish off by saying, because we need to hit on this. I know we're almost at 30 minutes, which is where I like to keep our podcast. Ben Johnson to the Bears. As a native Chicagoan, I got to say, Bears fans are really happy about this. I think this is a really good signing for the Bears. They gave him a boatload of money, but if that's your guy, if that's the person you say is that's our guy, he's going to make Caleb Williams and this offense amazing. He's going to make this team great. He's going to bring in good vibes. You give him as much money as possible. It's Chicago. It's a top 5 sports city in the United States. If you have a person in mind, you better be dishing out the money for him. And again, bit of an overpay, but you know what? If that's your guy, if that's who you're locked in on, then I think it's a good hiring for the Bears. I think Ben Johnson's really going to open up this offense more this upcoming year.
I
Year before
agree.
was obviously terrible. So I did want to hit on that at the very least before we ended this podcast because I feel like it'd be a disservice to just me being a Chicagoan, even though I'm not necessarily a Bears fan, and just say I like the Ben Johnson hiring. Again, maybe a little bit too much money, but I think it's going to work out. And do I dare say it? I think the Bears will for sure win at least 7 games next year.
They're a playoff
Probably
team
8
next
or
year.
9.
They are a playoff team. Ben Johnson's going to rebuild them. Ben Johnson was the number one. Every single team that was looking for a head coach wanted this guy, and the Bears are lucky because Ben Johnson wants to beat the boots and the butt off Michael LaFleur, and that's why he's staying in the NFC North, and that's what he's going to do next year. The Bears are going to the playoffs, and count me when I say right here, right now, January 24, 2025, the Bears will win the NFC North next year.
David, can you give me a Da Bears, please?
Da Bears.
Okay, we'll work on it. We'll work on it. We
Okay.
have, I guess, a
Hey,
year
Rafi, I
until
think I
that.
just need to visit you in Chicago, and then I just need to immerse myself in the culture.
You really do. I will
Yeah.
take you around. It'll be a
I mean,
great
you can
time.
teach me
But
about losing culture because we don't really have that, out here in New York with the Knicks, 2 All-Stars for the first time in 50 years. The Rangers are cooking. The Jets are pretty bad. So are the Giants, but it's okay if we don't talk about them. That's why I'm not a fan of them.
Yeah, we'll be talking about this throughout the next couple of weeks because again, once football season ends, you better bet your bottom dollar that we will be talking a lot about hockey, a little bit about basketball, and a lot about college basketball. March Madness just around the corner. So we hope you enjoyed this edition of Benchwarmer Sports podcast. Let us know what your guys' thoughts are on the divisional games, who you have winning the conference championship games, and obviously everything that's been the head coaching and GM carousel and just the coordinator carousel as well. We'll group that in as well. So for Davian, we hope you enjoyed this edition of the Benchwarmer Sports podcast. Have a good one. Enjoy conference championship weekend, and let's see what happens. See ya.
Peace.